Good morning and welcome to SFM's webinar on de-escalation in workplace. My name is Alyssa Ross and I'm on SFM's communications team. I'll be your MC today and I'm going to introduce the presenters now so you can put a face to the various names on your screen right now. First up is Dana Mickelson. Good morning, Dana. Dana is a longtime member of our loss prevention team. She and the other presenters will share more about themselves later in the presentation. Up next, we have Carl Gruber. Hey,
Morning,
Carl.
everyone.
So Carl is also a member of our loss prevention team. They now work in safety every single day. So we're thrilled they're contributing expertise to this webinar. Up next, we welcome Brian Fitzgerald.
Good morning.
Hey, Brian. Brian handles workplace injury claims at SFM and plays a very important role helping keep injured employees and policyholders informed on claims. So thanks for being here, Brian. And then finally, we have Cheryl Boesfield. Hey,
Good morning.
Cheryl. Cheryl's an attorney in SFM's in-house legal. She will be providing a legal perspective to today's topic. Thanks for being here. I'm going to let you all go for now and move on to a brief history of our company. So SFM Mutual Insurance Company is a monoline work comp insurer, which means we focus solely on work comp, and we've been doing that since 1983. We're now serving more than 33,000 employers throughout the upper Midwest and beyond. SFM is based in Bloomington, Minnesota, and you are looking at a picture of our headquarters there. However, we have teams located in many of our core states as well. And there's a lot more I could share about SFM, but I did promise to keep that brief. So let's move on to today's presentation topics. Some of what we'll touch on today includes the 4 categories of workplace violence, factors behind workplace violence and which industries are at higher risk, the various elements needed for a successful safety program, why a safety program should include escalation techniques, the claims process once an injury is reported, how workplace violence injuries can be challenging for return to work of an injured worker, and employer costs due to workplace violence claims or litigation. Now, we are saving time at the end of the hour to answer your questions in a question and answer format. We hope you will submit a question for that panel at the end of the hour. You can do that by using the question box in the GoToWebinar tool panel. It should be located on the right side of your screen. And then you may already be wondering how you can watch this webinar again later. We are recording it, and a follow-up email will be sent to you with a link to the recording. Have it directly in your inbox. The slide deck will also be made available to you. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Dana.
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm Dana Mickelson, a loss prevention specialist. I've been at SFM for 15 years, and I've been working as a loss prevention consultant in commercial insurance for 21 years. I'm going to define workplace violence, discuss the prevalence of workplace violence-related injuries, and define de-escalation. OSHA defines workplace violence as any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening disruptive behavior that occurs at work. Acts can comprise of written, verbal, or physical aggression, including assaults and homicides. Workplace violence can involve not only employees, but clients, customers, and visitors. The Department of Labor and Industry further states that workplace violence actions are intended to control or cause, or is capable of causing, death or bodily injury to oneself or others, and or property damage. While SFM's focus is the impact workplace violence can have on employees, it is important to recognize that such violence can also have broader implications beyond workers' comp. According to the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, there are 4 categories of workplace violence. Type 1, or criminal intent, means that the perpetrator has no relationship to the business or its employees and is usually committing a crime in conjunction with the violence, such as a robbery. Type 2, customer and client, occurs when a customer or client escalates or becomes violent during interactions with employees. This is the most common type of workplace violence that we see within workers' compensation. Type 3, worker on worker, occurs when there is workplace violence between coworkers, which can arise from workplace conflicts or interpersonal conflicts. Type 4, physical relationship, means that the perpetrator has a relationship to an employee outside of work that spills into the work environment. For example, a spouse of an employee comes to work and could put the entire work site in danger. All categories could result in potential workers' compensation claims depending on the facts of the incident. It may seem that the term workplace violence only implies violent assaults or crimes, but from SFM's view, workplace violence covers a broad spectrum of incidents. The most frequent type of workplace violence claims stem from combative clients, residents, or students in healthcare, social services, and school environments. These claims include bites, punches, kicks, hair pulling, headbutting, and more. They are typically not severe, but have the potential to be severe. Although less frequent, SFM also receives claims from violent assaults. Each year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, gathers data from approximately 200,000 employers for the survey of occupational injuries and illnesses. This infographic provides an overview of non-fatal assault trends using data from BLS. Assaults are categorized as intentional injury inflicted by another person and includes, but is not limited to, hitting, kicking, stabbing, shootings, and verbal assaults. The line graph shows an increase in days away from work cases over the past several years. There were over 41,000 days away from work cases and over 57,000 days away restriction or transfer cases from assaults in 2021 and 2022. At SFM, we classify workplace violence claims as fellow/patient or crime. The solid line on this chart shows the proportion of fellow, patient, and crime claims relative to all SFM claims since 2014. The decrease in 2020 is from the pandemic. We most likely saw the biggest decrease from schools since students were learning from home. I also want to note that some of the fellow patient claims are patient handling claims, which could not be removed for this analysis. The dotted line illustrates an increase in fellow patient and crime claims over the past 10 years, which aligns with the national trend reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The proportion of SFM claims from the fellow patient and crime injury sources over the past 5 years are primarily from two industries, education and healthcare. Claims from these industries mostly fall under type 2 of the 4 categories of workplace violence, customer and client. For example, an escalated student punching a teacher or a resident biting a healthcare worker. Industries in the all other category include property management and banks, but workplace violence can happen in any industry. While workplace violence can occur in any environment, certain factors and industries can increase the risk. Employees who work alone, such as delivery drivers, or those who work in isolated areas may have an increased risk. The time of day, such as late night shifts in convenience stores, and the location of the workplace, particularly in areas with higher crime rates, can also influence the level of risk. Industries that provide services and have a high interaction with the public or customers, such as hospitality, retail, customer service agents, and property management, as well as those in care-related fields like healthcare and social services, tend to experience a higher risk. Additionally, employees who handle money, such as bank employees, or those working in environments where alcohol is served, have an increased risk. One of the main components of preventing or reducing workplace violence is through de-escalation. De-escalation is the process of managing others' behaviors with your own using tactics to prevent or slow the potential violence. Tactics include using purposeful actions without physical force or with a reduction of force, verbal communication, and body language to diffuse volatile situations. I'm now handing it off to Carl, who will be providing more information on de-escalation programs.
Thank you, Dana. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carl Gruber, and I'm a loss prevention specialist for SFM in Wisconsin. I have been with SFM for almost 10 years, and I'll be going over the basic elements you need to create a successful de-escalation program for your organization. So let's get started. There are 4 basic elements needed for a successful program. First, you need to define responsibilities for everyone. Without this, you'll have everyone going in different directions and never really accomplishing anything. I will review later in this webinar what these responsibilities are and who might be leading the charge in those areas. Next, you'll want to select a training program. You'll be looking for something that best fits your organizational goals and vision. Every industry has different needs, and every organization has a different vision on how they can be successful for the population they are serving. The third basic element of a successful program is the actual creation of a training program. You need to ask these questions. What do you feel are the essential parts of the training program? What needs to be included and what doesn't need to be included? How are you going to present this information? How often? Do you change it up depending on job duties? These are all important questions you should be looking at and answering when deciding on how to create the program. The last element you want to examine is your training education style, along with goals. What is going to be the most effective style for our staff, and what is the goals we are trying to accomplish in that training? Do you do in-person or online training? Which one is more effective for my staff? Every generation has different learning styles they are comfortable with. Also, if the training isn't effective, the individuals will feel unsafe or like they don't belong in this job. Staff that have these feelings usually don't stick around very long at that job. We all know that retention of staff is a huge thing right now, not just from the time and money aspect of recruiting, but also from the aspect of getting the right person for the job. You pick that individual for a reason, and you don't want the reason they're leaving to be because they feel unsafe or like they don't belong. Let's take a deeper look into each of these elements. First, what are we looking for when we say define responsibilities? You should be looking to assign each group responsibility for creating, monitoring, and maintaining a part of the program. Take, for instance, administration. Administration should be responsible for the overall program protocol and evaluation. They should work with the manager and team leaders to create a mission statement. Once that is completed, they should decide what resources are needed to effectively carry out the mission statement for the program. This can include a budget and staff resources. Administration should also be responsible for creating and maintaining all documentation. Documentation can include training records, description of trainings, written program policy, and whatever else is necessary to the program. It will also be important they participate in the training to show the staff they care. If they don't participate, the staff will see it as not being very important. Now, how about our managers and team leaders? What is their responsibility? They should be tasked with deciding what the training program will look like. When choosing the right training program for your company, they'll want to consider the following. What is the age of our staff? This helps determine the type of training, if hands-on or computer-based. What is their experience level? Are they new, been at the company less than a year, or are they more established? What problems have we encountered in the past? What have our experiences shown to be our weak areas? What is the background of the clientele we are serving? Meaning, where do they come from? What is their social background? The managers, team leaders should also consider what is going to be our communication protocols for staff. How do they report issues in the program or changes in the clientele we are servicing? They need to be able to share successes along with things that may need to be changed. The managers, team leaders also need to determine when a change occurs in the program, how they communicate that change back to staff. This is huge. How well you communicate will go a long way in determining how successful you will be. Again, it will also be important they participate in the training to show the staff that they care. If they don't, again, the staff will see it as being not very important. Next is the mentors and the trainers. They need to be chosen as to be the experts between the managers, team leaders, and the frontline staff. They should be the best communicators and have a passion for what they're doing. You'll want them to not only teach the proper ways, but lead by example to all staff. You'll want the mentors and trainers to do random observations to help work with staff and see how effective the training has been. You can also use this time to give positive feedback. Another area you want them to be involved in is debriefing with your employees after an incident. This is a huge part of the program and showing you care about the safety and want to fix what might have gone wrong. The last area is staff. You'll want to place the expectation that they actively participate in training and create a space for them where they feel confident in sharing ideas and asking questions. An educated staff that feels like you are listening to them creates a positive atmosphere and gives your program a better chance of having success. Now, not all ideas are taken, but to just have them heard and act on the ones that can be acted upon is huge. The more you communicate with them, the better off you're going to be. Now let's get into the selection of a program. What should we be looking for? I'm going to look at 3 different areas of industry. First, let's look at schools. There are a few different training programs that are out there. The crisis prevention and intervention is one of the more popular trainings used. Another is positive behavioral interventions and support. No matter what program you use or combination of programs you use, it must meet your needs. You want to look at what is the dynamics of your students and staff population, so whatever training you choose to use is effective. Also, can this be used with our dietary, front office staff, and building services? As these areas see our students daily, most times they're the first people they see when they enter the building, and you need that interaction to be a positive one. You can also create a different training which may be more effective for these areas based on their interactions. Healthcare, like schools, have several different programs you can choose from depending on the clientele you serve. The following are just a few examples of the programs out there. TIPA Snow, the Alzheimer's Association, the state of Wisconsin has its own program. So again, you need to choose a program that encompasses all the areas you may deal with regarding autism, dementia, behavioral, and brain trauma. Experiencing more than one of these trainings so you are better equipped to see what each has to offer. You might even find that you want to take parts of each program and create your own. Get referrals from other businesses that are using the programs you're looking at. Talk to them on what their experience has been with the program. You'll also want to consider your home care, dietary, front office, and building services staff, as they will interact with clients also. You'll want to properly prepare them for dealing with someone with the needs we discussed earlier. All staff, whether at the facility or home, will have interactions with their residents/clients, family, and friends. For off-site staff, discuss escape routes in the homes, a check-in and check-out system with the office, boundaries being set for visits with family members. The interaction they have with the clients can be very different than the ones with their family and friends. You'll need to give them the skills to deal with either situation. Lastly, we have the all other industries. There are a lot of different programs out there. Several are customer service programs that include de-escalation training for staff. But the things you need to consider are, what type of work location do you have? Is it a residential setting, construction site, storefront, restaurant, factory? For some types of work, are you off-site at areas such as residential business settings for real estate? What is the type of access to our work site? Is it controlled or uncontrolled? What is the schedule for staff, vendors, and/or customers being in the area daily? This helps determine how populated the area is and when to expect guests in your workspace. Taking this all into consideration helps determine what really fits for a program for our staff. What skills do we need to develop to keep our staff safe? Getting a check-in and check-out system for the staff that works. It also determines what type of physical tools may be needed. And for our last 2 basic elements for a successful program, we have combined creation and goals. First in the process, and really a huge part of the program, is the selection of your mentors and trainers. This is huge. If they cannot communicate or are not passionate about the program, your staff will feel it and know it right away. It is hard to achieve your goals no matter how good of a program you have established up to this point, if that delivery of the program is just not as good. You also want to select someone who can be creative in how they deliver the materials and flexible enough to change it up depending on the staff they're working with. Goal setting is important for each step in training. You want to establish what you want to accomplish to lay the foundation for the training program. One of the top goals of this program should be keeping staff safe and the retention of staff through training and communication. You lose staff when they either feel unsafe and/or feel like there is no communication with them on how to properly, safely perform their job. Having open lines of communication with the trainer and mentor is essential to them succeeding. Establishing a way for them to communicate those experiences, whether good or bad, and utilizing the training program not only helps improve your program, but also the morale of the employees. You can't be everywhere, so your staff is your eyes and ears on that front line. Now you want to look at what tools might be needed to carry out the training. Are you going to need videos, help from consultants due to the expertise in this area? Also, training just annually is not going to lead to a successful program. As we have all went to trainings and 6 weeks later, we have forgotten most, if not all, we learned in that training unless we are constantly using that information. You're going to need to do reminders and campaigns to keep the information in front of them. SFM has a de-escalation team trainings and pre-made emails meant to supplement whatever training you are using. These can be used at monthly meetings, or the emails can be used monthly on skills that are necessary to their success. Another tool is using reenactments of actual incidents that happened at your staff meetings. These can take 5 minutes, but it makes your staff more aware of what is going on and how they can handle it using the skills they have learned. It is also a great opportunity to get your staff's input on those situations. Finally, what physical tools do you need to support the training you have established? Do you need barriers created between the customers and staff? Do you need a safe room for staff? Do you have an effective sensory room created, not just a sensory room? Do you have the proper safe resident handling tools? And do you use them properly so you don't trigger an incident? In addition to all this, have we established how staff can report other staff who they might think are needing help dealing with their emotions? All parts of this program that I have discussed are equally important, but how you put the program together and execute it will determine how successful you are. Now, Brian Fitzgerald will discuss claims handling.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brian Fitzgerald and I'm with SFM Insurance and have over 25 years of multi-state workers' compensation experience. I would like to speak with you about claims and the issues to be addressed with and without de-escalation. SFM triages all claims so that they are set up to be handled in an effective manner. The following are ways SFM can handle claims more effectively. First, medical-only claim representative focuses exclusively on medical claims, meaning they know the process inside and out. Second, lost time adjuster focuses complex medical and lost time claims, which are some of the most costly claims, and their efforts help to get employees back to work. Third, bill review. Look over bills to ensure accuracy and timely payment. Fourth, nurse case manager can review the medical recommendations for recovery to ensure the injured employee is getting the best care and is making strides to return to work. 5, doctors on staff, much like the nurse case managers, they consult on cases to ensure care is helping get the employee back to health and work. 6, independent medical examination are used in cases where the second opinion may be helpful. And finally, medical legal reviews. This is where we have a meeting with the lost time adjuster, doctors on staff, and our staff attorney to look at all avenues of the claim and come up with a plan that best handles the issues and concerns. Next, all claims must be reported in a timely manner. Work comp is a no-fault concept. There are record-only claims, which are incident or injury takes place, but no medical care was sought. Next, medical-only claims, incident or injury takes place, and medical care was obtained. And finally, wage loss claims. Incident or injury takes place and medical care along with wage loss is the result of the claim. Impact of injuries. There are direct costs such as compensation and medical expenses which will impact premium and the employer's experience mod. There are indirect costs which can impact an employer even more than direct costs. These are 1. Employee replacement, 2. Overtime for the employees to replace hours the injured worker was working, 3. Product service quality, 4. Increased need for the supervision and management, 5. Investigation of both SFM and by the employer, 6. Employee training and retraining, 7. Damaged equipment, 8. Cost of lost opportunity, 9. Cost of lost earning power, and finally, employee morale. Workplace violence claims can result in lost time and longer timelines before closure due to the types of injuries that we see, including concussions or even PTSD. As shown on the slide, the average cost of fellow patient and crime loss claims over the past 5 years is $27,000. The absence of de-escalation program can exacerbate these claims in both complexity and cost. These claims can have significant implication for all, and here are the potential ramifications. Temporary total disability benefits up to 130 weeks. Temporary partial disability benefits up to 275 weeks. Permanent partial disability benefits, this depends on the extent of the injury and recovery. Permanent total disability benefits due to injury and inability to work in the future. And finally, one of the most important, termination of an employee while on restrictions. This provides many benefits to the employee, such as entitlement to a qualified rehabilitation counselor, entitlement to job vendors, potential retraining, potential college, additional temporary total disability benefits, and miscellaneous expenses like computers, mileage, and other equipment. Also, claims without de-escalation will typically result in a claim being litigated. This will have the following impact. 1, the employees who are representative have claims that are typically open longer. 2, they require more involvement by SFM. 3, they require more involvement by the insured. 4, they could require the insured to be deposed. And 5, they could require the insured to attend conferences and or hearings. Finally, a way to de-escalate a claim is to have a return to work program. It is imperative that an employer have a return to work program and one that is flexible and can bring an injured worker back to work. Injured workers who are brought back to work feel respected, and when an insured takes the time to relay their willingness to help and work with them, better results for all take place, and the issues I mentioned will be greatly decreased. Next, Cheryl Bosefield, one of our in-house attorneys.
Thank you, Brian, and nice to see you all today. My name is Cheryl Bosefield, and I'm an attorney with SFM's in-house legal department. I'm in my 26th year of practicing in the area of workers' compensation. I'm here today to talk with you from a legal perspective, how implementing workplace violence de-escalation practices and procedures can positively impact an injured worker's claim and ultimately your workers' compensation policy. So why should one care about workplace violence? It provides safety for all in the workplace. It provides safety for your employees and their coworkers, your customers, clients, vendors, and public, and overall the public. You might be thinking, where does workers' compensation come into play in workplace violence and de-escalation practices and procedures? First off, workers' compensation insurance protects all employers and all injured workers in most cases. Workers' compensation is a no-fault insurance system where an employer is responsible for an injured worker and the related benefits regardless of fault. It is a state-created legislation that provides an outline of what benefits are available to all injured workers, such as Brian has just outlined for us. As Dana discussed earlier, workplace violence can arise in multiple situations in multiple ways, leading to a work-related injury. A workplace violence injury might happen in the workplace, wherever that might be. A workplace injury might happen while on the way into or out of work, which we call ingress and egress claims. A workplace injury might happen while traveling for work. To be a workplace violence injury, it is an injury that must arise out of the employment from the acts of either a co-employee or due to the acts of a third person, where the conduct was directed against the employee as either an employee or because of the employee's employment. However, a claim will not be compensable if the violence was directed at an employee due to personal reasons unrelated to the employment. So what types of workplace violence injuries are we seeing and in what settings? As both Dana and Carl have touched on, two of the main areas where we see workplace violence injuries are in the areas of education and healthcare. First, looking at schools. School workers include a wide variety of positions, including teachers, support staff, custodians, food service, and other areas. Looking to some examples of what might be a workplace violence injury in the school setting. An example is a back injury that happened to a teacher when a fight broke out between a group of students during the change in classes, when the teacher stepped in to break up the fight, causing a low back injury requiring surgery. Another example is a head injury that happened to a special education paraprofessional who, while working with a student, the student became agitated, pushing and shoving the paraprofessional, causing the paraprofessional's head to hit a wall, leading to a severe concussion. Looking at healthcare. Healthcare workers work in a wide variety of settings and include a wide variety of positions, including nurses, certified assistants, office workers, aides, laundry, dietary, custodians, food service, and others. Looking to the type of injuries, workplace violence injuries we see in healthcare, it's similar to those in the schools. An example of an injury is a knee injury that happened to an aide while helping a client get dressed, was pushed and kicked, causing the aide to fall, leading to a knee surgery. Another example we've had is a head injury that happened to a nurse who was assaulted while taking a combative patient's vitals, causing a concussion. Looking to other industries, of which there are many, and as both Dana and Carl noted, all areas of employment can see workplace violence leading to workplace violence injuries. No area is immune. An example is a severe head injury that happened to a worker in a warehouse where coworker 1 believed coworker 2 tried to hit him with a forklift, and in retaliation, the coworker 2 assaulted, so coworker 1, who thought he was trying to be hit, assaulted the other coworker, causing a very serious head injury, which caused bleeding on the brain. And I can tell you that luckily that person did recover. The last area I would like to touch on are those workplace violence injuries where third parties are coming onto a work premise. As Dana noted, there are high-risk factors in certain industries, and which includes those such as banks, restaurants, and property management. An example is an injury that happened to a worker at a fast food business where a customer, not happy how long the wait was, threw a drink at the worker, bruising the worker's face. Another example is an injury that happened to an apartment manager who was assaulted while asking disruptive guests to leave the building, leading to a neck and head injury of a concussion. I would now like to turn now to situations where an injured employee obtains an attorney and what that might mean. We can tell you that injured employees retain attorneys for multiple reasons. Often we do not know why, the reason why, and oftentimes we may not even hear from that attorney. Some of the reasons why an injured employee may retain an attorney could be at the suggestion of a family member, a friend, or even a coworker. One of the most often cited reasons why an injured employee may retain an attorney is that of lack of communications. It could be it could be a delay in communications by the employer with filing the first report of injury, or it could be that an employee feels that no one cares that they were injured, as no one has checked in or asked how they're doing. Could also be on the insurance company side, where there's a delay in either the claim being opened, hearing from the claim rep, could be due to a delay in receipt of benefits, such as wage loss benefits or approval of recommended medical care and treatment. It could also be fear of losing one's job. Oftentimes employees are concerned that because they had an injury, they're going to be terminated. And lastly, lack of understanding the workers' compensation process often leads people to retain an attorney. As we all know, it can feel like an overwhelming and complex process. You may not be surprised to learn that attorney involvement in a claim often leads to an increase in claim costs. Litigated claims are on average over 5 times the cost of non-litigated claims. This data was brought to us by SFM's analytic team, who looked to litigated injuries for the years 2019 to 2023. We also know that litigated claims remain open longer, and this is supported both by SFM's own data and by national statistics that use a figure of 195% longer. And I can personally tell you that litigated claims on my desk do tend to be open longer. So now we're at the now what question. You may be thinking, so what can I as an employer do to help control my workers' compensation costs due to these workplace violence injuries? We would like to leave you with the following strategies that you as an employer can put in place as a part of your workers' compensation policies and procedures, and which hopefully you may find helpful before an injury happens and during the time of an injury. First and foremost, timely response, filing those first reports of injuries timely, and as soon as you learn about it is key. With that early reporting, SFM can open their file and begin their investigation and provide that injured worker with the appropriate workers' compensation benefits. Also key and of great importance is communication. We cannot emphasize the need to communicate early and often with your injured employee, and also with SFM. Another thing you may wish to look at is hiring practices, having the right person in place, along with a good job description, as Carl had discussed. Another key factor is accommodating light duty work restrictions. Brian did talk with us about that as well. And we cannot emphasize enough how getting someone back to work who's been sitting at home helps move the claim along and lessens the impact on the costs of each claim. While looking at light duty, have a return to work policy and be flexible with that employee. Another key area is that of termination of an employee. We here at SFM do understand there's times and places when termination is the only avenue that you as an employer may have. However, before making that decision, please discuss that with your SFM team so we can talk through the impact on the injured worker's claim, especially where they're on light duty work or off work, those sort of things. think after the next piece that I'd like to talk about is continue to follow your policies, procedures, and expectations, including enforcing your de-escalation procedures, policies, and practices. This is really key. Oftentimes I'm asked, well, is it okay for me to do so? And my answer is emphatically yes. When an employee has their obligations to continue to abide by your rules, your policies, and your procedures, and if not, please take, I would always encourage you to take the appropriate actions, including documentation. Along the same line, anytime someone comes to you and reports a complaint about someone who's on work restrictions or has a work injury, we often see times when an employee might be working outside their restrictions, or the employee feels that their restrictions are not being followed. Do again investigate and take the appropriate actions on a timely basis. Another key avenue for you as an employer is to use your internal resources, such as medical leave, Family Medical Leave Act, or long-term or short-term disability benefits. Medical leave is considered an accommodation of work restrictions. So again, you have those internal resources to look to. Also utilize your external resources, such as employee assistance programs and other avenues you might have. Lastly, I would like to leave you with, please rely on your agency and your SFM team. Please know that we are here to partner with you at all steps along the way in what can feel like an overwhelming complex situation. Thank you all, and I will pass you back to Alyssa.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. So I will be sharing key takeaways, but before I begin, a quick reminder, we're going to begin our Q&A momentarily. So if you have a question you'd like to ask our panel, please use the question box within GoToWebinar to submit your question. That box should be located on the right side of your screen. All right, we've thrown a lot of information at you this hour, so I will highlight some key takeaways that we hope you'll remember above all else today. So first, have a training plan in place and include de-escalation in your plan. Second, create and follow your company policies and set expectations with all staff to follow them. Third, plan for return to work. If you have light duty options available ahead of time, it's easier to work with an injured employee on their path back to work. Fourth, communication across the board is essential. Keeping an open line of communication is universally beneficial when it comes to safety and helping an injured employee get back to work. And then finally, SFM is your partner. Reach out to your SFM representative if you have questions about the training process or claims process. We're a resource that you can rely on. All right, we've made it to the Q&A portion of the hour, and I'm going to ask our panel of experts to join me back on camera for this segment. Now, I know one of our most frequently asked questions is whether this presentation will be available to watch back or if the PowerPoint will be made available. And I can confirm yes to both. SFM will be emailing all registrants a copy of the PowerPoint and a link to the recording of this presentation so you can watch again in the future or share with a colleague. So happy to report we do have questions rolling in. Neil has asked, can the employer be responsible if two employees have an altercation with each other outside of work?
I guess I can jump in on this one. That's a great question. It will take some investigation by your SFM claim representative on that one, because we will have to determine whether was it related to something that's been going on at work, say they've had a history of spats or not getting along, or is there some reason that it was personal to something that's going on in their outside life. And I can tell you that we've seen both of these types of situations, and so we take it seriously and look carefully. Any information that you might have as an employer about things going on, let SFM know. Those are very key. So I guess the long answer short is yes.
Yeah, and we actually had a very similar question come in. I'm just going to ask it and then perhaps tag on to that answer. So Deb has asked, how would you handle an employee who is in an abusive relationship and the abuser comes on our campus from time to time?
Wow, that's a hard one. I guess I don't know. Carl, would you have any thoughts on that one? I mean,
yeah, actually in my past life, a little bit of it, sometimes what they can do, if they have that comes into it, do they have a restraining order? Do they have anything else that's there? But making HR aware of that this is going on, that they can make the other employees in the area aware that, hey, this person's around, it's been kind of a tenuous situation. Just be aware, let us know, that person's there, and let HR know, and then you can kind of handle it from there. But there's also, like Cheryl said, a lot of different factors that come into that. Is there a restraining order? Is there some kind of other order that's in place right now? Or is that something that the employee needs to have, or for the company to forbid them to be on the property?
Yeah, have a plan in place so that you're prepared for when the spouse comes on site. Call 911, the police, and just overall, it's good to have a plan in place for different situation, hostile persons, conflicts between employees, and so on.
That's a great point, Dana, too. Let your local law enforcement, whatever would be governing you, know that this has been happening with one of your employees also, so that they're aware. So then they know, hey, something's happened with this person in the past. So if they call and they get the call, they know, hey, we know what's going on, we can get there. They'd rather know about it beforehand than knowing about it later on when something does happen.
And I'd also think build it into your de-escalation plan and policies and procedures, and have unfortunately these days it's a discussion that I think we all have to have in our business world sort of thing. So I guess preemptive is some sort of visitors policy, that sort of thing. So tough situation for sure.
Yeah, make sure that the employee also has the resources that they need. So as Cheryl mentioned, the EAP programs, or make sure that they're aware of the resources out there, or shelters and so on.
Great, very thorough answer. Thank you, guys. All right, Matt has asked kind of a longer question. I'm going to paraphrase it. He works at a hotel, and he's asked, how do you keep people safe against non-compliant vagabonds? Beyond preventative patrols with RAMs, what would you suggest?
That's a tough.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dana. You can.
Sure, I'll start, and you add on, Carl. Gosh, that is a tough situation, as Carl started to say. I think, again, reviewing what policies your hotel currently has in place for dealing with situations. It might be that you need to make some improvements to your policy. You could talk to maybe other hotel properties and see what they recommend, and just I would always just be ready to, again, call 911, have the police intervene and help in those situations. Carl, do you have anything to add?
If you have a second person, to have them around if that type of situation does happen, that helps out tremendously. Having somebody that they can call to get help from, if it's not gotten to the 911 type situation, have something in your policy on how you handle that. And make sure you have barriers created between them and the vagabonds. If they're to do something, that's something different. You can call law enforcement, they can get there. But if you go out and you kind of get into it, so to speak, with them, now we're having such not a great situation. So you're better off, like I said, calling that 911, unfortunately. There isn't really a great answer for this.
All right, thank you. Marlis has asked, would you recommend having a return to work statement in your employee handbook, besides just having light duty jobs available? Is that the only return to work requirement?
Just thinking.
I can.
Yeah, go ahead. No, just thinking through that. I would discuss it with your employment lawyer if you have one, for one thing, to make sure it's in the proper place. But I also do believe that I know routinely employers I work with talk about it during their safety meetings. We have a return to work policy. We believe strongly in it. We want to bring you back to work under those work restrictions, sort of thing. So I guess I don't know the actual answer about where it would go or if it should go in your handbook or not. But I'm not sure if I'm quite understanding if you're asking about the insurance company requests, having a return to work policy, but obviously we recommend you have one. So maybe Brian has something he can add.
Right. The other thing is too is to have it flexible, because clearly there are jobs maybe that person was doing that now they can't do, and maybe they, with their light duty restrictions, would be able to do other jobs, whether it be full-time or part-time. And so obviously the need for flexibility, something in maybe in your return to work statement that states that, hey, if we can't bring you back to your area of expertise, that we may bring you back to other areas in the company that we can use you while you're on restrictions.
And SFM does have a sample return to work written policy in our resource catalog. You could always take advantage of grabbing that, because I think what you're asking, do you need to have it written? You should have something written, but making it flexible, like Brian and Cheryl said, and then also consulting with your labor attorney, because they're the ones who would have to defend you on that part of it. But we do have a sample that is in our resource catalog.
And I know we also brainstorm and have some, I think some other written pieces that help provide some thinking outside the box. What can you bring somebody back?
Light duty or transitional duty samples for different industries. And yeah, we have some other return to work resources as well that policyholders can grab on our website or reach out to your SFM representatives for assistance.
Also, it may not just be a specific job, it may be times. For example, maybe this person can only work a certain amount of hours, and maybe it best suits for you folks to bring them back, instead of in the morning, bring them in back in the afternoon, maybe a 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 type of thing. That type of flexibility would be helpful as well.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned our resource catalog. For those of you unfamiliar with our website, to get to that, you head to our website, which is sfmic.com. On the very top of the page is a navigation bar. Click on resource catalog. From there, you can use keywords to search or just use some of the other filters that are provided there. But you can search for some of the things we just mentioned, as well as de-escalation, and that will bring up a bunch of resources. We will be emailing a direct link to the resource catalog and the de-escalation resources we have in the follow-up email we'll be sending after this webinar. We do have some more questions here, and I have to sift through them really quick. If employee had surgery that was unrelated to place of employment, but now the recovery time is affecting return to work, and the employee is unable to complete their work in a timely fashion, what are my obligations as an employer of a small clinic?
This is one that's going to delve over into the employment law side. It's looking to your reasonable accommodations. What can you reasonably accommodate? I know that federal and state law takes kind of a hard line. They don't want you to really differentiate between non-work injuries and work injuries sort of thing. So again, it comes down to, can you accommodate those work restrictions? And again, that, like I said, reach out to an employment lawyer if you have one to kind of walk through those kind of facts.
We have quite a number of people submitting questions, just asking if you guys are able, or SFM is able to come and provide some of this training to their teams. I encourage you to reach out to your SFM representative and ask that question. It'll be specific to your account, and no doubt we can provide resources on this subject and discuss training opportunities.
Yeah, and even adding to that, we have a little what we call a pillar chart for de-escalation trainings that we can bring to analyze what you have in place and help you analyze and kind of find if there's some weaknesses that we need to improve on or areas we need to improve on. So don't be afraid to give one of us a call, or whoever your rep is, to give them a call and they can help you through that.
Certainly. Another question here, what if an employee got hurt at home and wasn't hurt at work? How do you put this into a return to work policy?
I think it kind of goes along with the things that we've been talking about already. Again, that accommodation, what can you do to bring that person back to work? Just overall sort of thing. So I guess I wouldn't change your practices because you don't want to be accused of harassing someone or retaliating against them for something like that. So again, it's just that simple. Can we accommodate your restrictions or not?
Yeah, I suppose you treat it the same as if they were coming to the work site. You can't be in their home to make sure or confirm that they're staying within their restrictions, but regardless of where the employee works, that should be reviewed anyway as an expectation that they need to follow their restrictions during their work hours and then outside of work as well.
And that's another one where get with your labor attorney to see what they feel comfortable in defending and how to write it, especially depending on the state you're in, whatever.
Right, and the other thing is too is you want to make sure that when you do bring that person back to work, that obviously you follow the restrictions, but also that you make sure that his work does not aggravate or accelerate the pre-existing non-work injury.
Certainly. We have time for one more question. Should de-escalation training be given to everyone, even if their role doesn't interact with guests?
Yes. It can happen by anything. It can be an employee on employee. It can be employee with customer. Everyone should have some sort of training in de-escalation techniques. It's essential to having a well-rounded program because things are unpredictable. You don't know where it's going to come from, how it's going to happen. And you want your employees to be prepared, your staff to be prepared to handle it in the correct way. It could even happen off-site. And we do see some things that will happen off-site with real estate, stuff like that. Home care. So big things are to have training, but tailor it to what that group is. It may be different than what you do with another section of your staff.
Yep.
And follow up
so
regularly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because people forget, and those training talks that we have will help fill in the gaps in between, like any big annual trainings that policyholders might provide. It's beneficial to provide, just have discussion groups, hands-on, because that helps to increase retention. We're probably going to respond better in actual situations, be more prepared.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Don't just do an annual training. You need to have some kind of campaign that goes on to put those reminders in front of people and also practice the situations and how you react to those situations. That's huge.
And again, from the legal side, an injury can happen anywhere. It could happen on their walking into work or walking out of work or, doing something offsite. So, like I said, an overall training for everyone, maybe it certainly is appropriate.
Excellent answers, you guys. We are going to wrapping up now. If we didn't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to your SFM representative. They are there to help you. I do want to give a special thanks to Dana, Carl, Brian, and Cheryl for their participation in today's event, and a thanks to Sarah Gase, a member of our communications team who has been behind the scenes of this webinar. Finally, a big thanks to Vice President and Chief Communications Officer Andy Gebhard for his contributions to the content of this event. We hope you learned a lot today and that you will join us in the future for another webinar. Take care and goodbye.